host, Nass, here to present you a post All-Star break episode. I mean, I know there hasn't been a lot of basketball over the past couple weeks outside the All-Star break. Obviously, players getting a breather, intermission. But on today's episode, Nass the Pod, I wanted to recap some brief All-Star game takeaways, All-Star weekend stuff. Then we're going to take a glance at my updated NBA Title Contender Hierarchy. And that's going to pivot us basically to the next segment, which is 5 teams, not just 5 teams, but 5 looming contending teams that I think not just have a chance to win the title, but I think they have a chance to basically have a coming out party in the second half. So I'll dive into those 5 teams and why I think they're capable of going on a special run. All-Star weekend, I mean, I'm an NBA junkie, as you know. There's a reason why I have this platform. There's a reason why you're continuing to click on it, because you know what I'm going to talk about. You know what to expect here. The 2026 All-Star Weekend was actually a lot more entertaining as anticipated and expected. NBA All-Star Weekend, like growing up, it used to be seen as this sacred, appreciative period of time where you're connecting players of the past with players of the present, players of the future, with the Rising Stars game. And it actually started off with the Rising Stars. I usually never watch the celebrity game. I just never do. Shout out Rome Flynn, though. I know he's hooping. Back-to-back MVPs in the celebrity game. Anyways, like the Rising Stars game, I loved the competition. I actually enjoy watching. The past couple years, I've had almost just as fun watching the Rising Stars game as I have the actual All-Star game. You know what I mean? Especially with the crazy shots the players taking the All-Star game now, and just the lack of effort. And back in the day, like when I was growing up, you would not just see the All-Stars compete, but you saw that the All-Stars like took pride in putting on a show. The idea of the All-Star game is to not just put the best players on the planet together and play a game, but it's ideally supposed to be the best pickup game in the world. The USA has dominated the Olympics, so on and so forth. So just the whole best players in the world thing is not even a question. So with that being said, like what's kind of been lost, the past 4 or 5 years, that I would say, at least as someone that actually watches the game annually and the contest and everything, the players don't seem to take pride in putting on a show as much as they did prior. You got to give big shout outs to Victor Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards. I'd give most of the credit primarily to those two because of the effort they exemplified on the court, the intensity, and like I said, the pride that they took to put on a show for the millions of fans that went to go, enjoy All-Star Weekend. All-Star Weekend is not just one night. It's Team World, which obviously they didn't have guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, I believe played one game, I believe. So Team World was, everyone knows that Luka and, shout out KD. KD kind of thrown Luka and Jokic under the bus for their lack of effort in All-Star games. But it's true. Those guys kind of mess around. And, if you're really trying to put this product out, like your players got to, So I know in the first game, Team World lost. And then I had predicted that Team Stripes was going to win. That was the team that was led by LeBron, Steph, KD, Kawhi, De'Aaron Fox, Jaylen Brown, Jalen Brunson. Really, like that was the team that I had picked. I even threw a little wager on. I'm not too proud of it, but Team Stars. So that was like Cade Cunningham, Devin Booker, Jalen Duren, Jalen Johnson, Tyrese Maxey. They represented very well. They ended up taking home the whole tournament. Anthony Edwards scored in double digits, I believe, in each of the tournament games. So I actually was a fan of the mini tournament setup because if you think about it, every fan in the NBA has a different, favorite player. Everyone kind of has a different guy. Like there's some guys that really like Anthony Edwards. There's some guys that really like Steph Curry. There's some guys that really like Kevin Durant. De'Aaron Fox, Jaylen Brown, Jalen Brunson. I'm just spewing names. So the mini tournament all-star game style, I liked it, but I think you should still go back to old school East-West. You can keep the mini tournament because with everyone having, different favorite players, I remember sometimes watching the all-star game and, like, for example, like Rajon Rondo, He made the All-Star game a couple of times. There'd be times where I'd be watching the game hoping, this guy's gonna, play 30 minutes. Obviously, it's an All-Star game, so you're not gonna play that long, but you want to see your guys play. And I feel like with the mini tournament style, not only does it give all the All-Stars a chance to play these high intensity games because they're gonna get competitive. That's just how mini tournament basketball is. Like if you have a squad of 6, 7 guys, 4 teams, winner takes all, it's gonna get competitive. If you have the players playing more minutes in this mini tournament style, but you just keep it East West, I think that would bode well. I think that would kind of give the old traditional fan that kind of old school feel of East West while trying to bring in some new flavor. You're not really taking away your globalization efforts. The skills challenge, 3-point contest, dunk contest, I'm always tuned into that. I thought the dunk contest was, very competitive as well. Shout out Carter Bryant, Kashad Johnson of the Miami Heat. Not a familiar name, but he was doing his thing. He was strutting. He was doing his thing. But what I took away from that dunk contest was these dunks were mostly propless. This was mainly based on just pure athleticism. You saw Kashad Johnson jump over E40, which might have been, I want to say maybe, I don't want to say least difficult because you got to be able to dunk to speak on dunks, but I would say that was probably the least exciting dunk of the night, but that's how exciting all the other dunks were. Carter Bryant was so close to bringing it home. So close. He just had to turn left a little bit. Oh my God. He was about to jam that. He was about to really jam that. Carter Bryant, hell of a defender too. Dame Lillard winning a 3-point contest on an Achilles injury is bat crazy, extremely bat crazy. It just tells you about um, how advanced we've become with our medical technology and our doctors, and just the improvements we've made in with diagnosing these injuries and guys, getting guys back to 100%. It's just night and day compared to what we used to deal with back then. But yeah, enough All-Star weekend. I want to quickly glance at my updated NBA title contender hierarchy. As of right now, first class to June, I have the OKC Thunder, the Denver Nuggets, and that's it. That's it. A little shaky, but yeah, first class to June, the OKC Thunder, the Denver Nuggets. The contender crashers, Boston Celtics, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Houston Rockets, San Antonio Spurs, Detroit Pistons, Phoenix Suns, Los Angeles Lakers, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. A couple of these teams, we'll see if they retain their position in the tier. So I had actually put this title contender hierarchy together a couple of days before Paul George was suspended, 25 games for PEDs. Otherwise, I probably would have dropped the Philadelphia 76ers down to the fringe tier. The Minnesota Timberwolves, I glanced at them, but after the Dosumu acquisition, I think they might be borderline, knocking on the door of first class to June. That's a team that's beaten the Denver Nuggets in the playoff series in the past. They've battled really hard against the OKC Thunder. They even got the best of the Thunder. I believe in their most recent matchup, AE played well in that big home matchup against OKC. And, when you think about OKC, J-Dub still dealing with some hamstring stuff. His wrist has been, up and down. I know he's recovered fully from that, but that's been a nagging injury the past year and a half, even into the playoffs. And the honest thing with OKC that I'm really starting to realize over these past couple of weeks is it looks like they might need another knockdown score. You look around, J-Dub, outside of Shea, J-Dub is probably the only guy that can go get a bucket for himself. Isaiah Joe, a little bit more shooter than scorer. You have guys like, obviously, Dort and Caruso. Those guys are mostly stationary shooters. You're not really going to ask them to create off the dribble or, dictate possession to possession. AJ Mitchell, who I think he's still dinged up with an injury right now. He's another guy off the bench that can give you a spark. That's why I thought the Jared McCain acquisition was pretty major, just because I can foresee in the future, McCain and Shea playing crunch time together. and McCain relieving Shea of having to create, every single shot or every single possession. I can see McCain simplifying the game for guys like J Dub, Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein. I can see because since they moved off of Josh Giddey, and obviously it worked out for them because they went on to win a title, they haven't really filled that kind of floor general void. He's a score first guy. He can set up guys, but that's not his superpower. His superpower is getting buckets. It's been a while since we've kind of looked back and realized, okay, who here on the court can go create a shot for someone else, possession to possession? Who can go and create mismatches, disadvantages, get to the second line of the defense, constantly make the opposition, shift their rotations? Who's that guard outside of Shea that can do that? Outside of J Dub from time to time that can do that? So that's the only thing. I mean, it's not enough. I mean, OKC still, a top 5 net team, still a top 10 offense. Their defense has kind of slipped a little bit, but they've had some injuries, so I'll cut them some slack. And they're still a defending champs. I mean, I'm not just gonna just forget that pre pre the return of J Dub. I mean, this 24-1 start, it's not a fluke. I mean, first 25 games in, they had one of the best starts in NBA history. So this is still a team that when they do get right, when they do get on the floor all together and they get healthy, that they're still a championship contending team. They can still find themselves deep inside that they can still play at a championship level. So I'm gonna keep them. I'm still keeping them in that tier, but I think Minnesota Timberwolves. I think that Dosumu solving some of the point guard problem solving stuff, spark off the bench. Dante DiVincenzo finally gets just a little relief, so he's not like you don't need to get 20 from Dante every single night. And it was getting to that point with Mike Conley on the back nine. They moved off Rob Dillingham. Bones Highland has been actually a bright spot for them. It's probably the probably my biggest takeaway from the contender crashers tier. Celtics, Sixers, Rockets, Spurs, Pistons, Suns, Lakers, T-Wolves. Fringe category, I have the New York Knicks, Cleveland Cavaliers, the Toronto Raptors, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Orlando Magic. So like I said, this hierarchy was put together prior to the Paul George 25-game suspension. And then obviously that means this was pre-NBA trade deadline. But after the trade deadline, there was only like 3-4 games that some of these teams got to play. Like Jaren Jackson only played 3 times for the Jazz before the break. James Harden is playing, I believe, in his 5th game as a Cavalier tonight. So I wanted to give the big trade acquisitions, I wanted to give them some time before I really give them some feedback and my just my takes on kind of how they fit and gel with the team. But for now, in the fringe category, I did have the Knicks and I did have the Cavs as currently constructed. So the Cavs before James Harden arriving, Garland is still dealing with injuries. I just thought that the wear and tear on Mitchell, he's gonna get to the playoffs. He's not gonna break down, I don't believe. At least I hope not. But that the wear and the tear of him having to play point guard and shooting guard and do everything to get the Cavs to play in a particular position to fight to come out of the East. I thought that was just going to be too much without Darius Garland. But after the James Harden trade, I think I would definitely give them an upgrade. Contender Crashers. Been a team that's dealt with little minor injuries. I know OG Anunoby's dealing with some toe stuff right now. They picked up Jose Alvarado at the trade deadline. That's a great, great pickup for the low. That's a guy that he may even take like Jordan Clarkson's minutes just because of what he provides for them on both sides of the floor as like a catch and shoot guy. It's another guy who can put the ball in his hands just to get the ball out of Brunson's hand. It feels like Brunson always has the ball. And I don't think he's that type of player. Like I don't think he's a volume like dribble, dribble, dribble detrimental, to the team performance guy. I don't think Brunson's like that. I think he's a team first guy. As we know, taking that that big pay cut to allow the Knicks to facilitate bringing in Bridges. But I think Alvarado gives the Knicks that that juice. You know what I mean? That juice that felt like they needed, that fire. Um, he's a guy that, he's not afraid to defend. He's played in a couple playoff games, played in a couple playoff series. He's just a fighter. You know what I mean? And you look at their roster now with Brunson, Towns, Mikal, OG, Alvarado, Clarkson, Deuce McBride. Now you're looking at it and like, okay, that's a real team. Still have Mitchell Robinson. You can go two bigs. You can go smaller, go one big. But even Josh Hart, if you want to go Brunson, three wings, and Mitchell Robinson. So I feel like Jose Alvarado gives them a lot of flexibility without taking away their biggest strength. And their biggest strength right now is Brunson. But if you give Brunson a couple minutes, have Alvarado out there, at least you're not losing anything on the defensive end. So if Alvarado can be a plus on the defensive end for those like little mini shifts where Brunson needs a breather, that's going to be huge for the Knicks. That's going to be a huge, huge swing for the Knicks because when you talk about those like 50-50 plays, Jose Alvarado is a 50-50 guy. He's a guy that can swing a game for you based off his grit, his effort. So I like that pickup for the Knicks. I don't like the Knicks, but I definitely like that pickup for them. I would probably upgrade the Knicks and the Cavs to the contender crashers category if I was to redo this again, but I wanted to give you guys the hierarchy as it currently looked pre-NBA trade deadline. If I was to really switch it up, like I said, I put the Knicks and the Cavs in the contender crashers category. I would probably drop the Phoenix Suns to fringe. Just health reasoning. They just can't seem to get all their guys on the floor. I mean, we'll see how they finish out this stretch. They play really good basketball, but they can't keep their guys on the floor. You got D Book, who is he's now coming off an injury. He played in the All Star game, but prior to that, I think he played a game. He played a game right before the break, but before that last game before the break, he had missed like the previous 2 weeks. Grayson Allen has kind of been in and out of the lineup. Jalen Green has only played a handful amount of games for the Phoenix Suns. So I'm just waiting for that team to get all their guys back, but I'd probably drop them down to the fringe category, and I would replace them with the Cavs, replace them with the Knicks, and then to round out the fringe, I had the Clippers, who, Garland's hurt. I don't think Kawhi can be Superman for the next 2 months, and then into the playoffs, not enough to consider them, a title contender or like a contender crasher, I should say. But I do like that team, though. Garland, Benedict Mathurin, they got younger. The Orlando Magic just need to get Franz on the floor. He needs to stay on the floor. Him and Paolo, they just got to finish this year out. If those guys can finish this year out, then maybe I can reassess them a little different. But for now, I would have to have them in the fringe category. And it's a good team. I've watched a good amount of Orlando basketball this year. I think Mosley has falsely, gotten some, hot seat acquisitions, but I mean, he's the whole reason that Orlando kind of made this flip in the first place. They took Paolo, Mosley's there, put some role pieces together. They figured out their point guard with Anthony Black, brought in Bane. This is the most competitive Orlando's been from a talent standpoint. I'd say it's got to be since maybe the early 2010s, I would say, since the Dwight teams. Cross-offs on the title contender hierarchy: the Golden State Warriors, the Portland Trail Blazers, and the Dallas Mavericks. Those weren't necessarily contender hierarchy teams, but I did highlight some of those teams early in the year just because, especially the Warriors, with Jimmy, Steph, and Draymond there, and what they were able to do the first 30 games with Jimmy, with no training camp, mid-season trade. I was very impressed by that. I actually had them down as a title contender for this year, but they weren't able to figure out the Kaminga stuff. And you got guys like Pods and Moody, and they're spotty. They've been okay. They haven't been great. They haven't given the Warriors that lift to be like, all right, this is not the same team from a year ago. I don't want to say they haven't improved as players, but they haven't given the Warriors and that organization that necessary lift that you'd hope a young player would for your organization. But yeah, I had them as a cross off. And then Dallas Mavericks, Cooper Flag has the Rookie of the Year basically in his bag. I think it's already a wrap. Kyrie out for the year as recently. recently stated he'll come back next year. So we'll see you, Kai. Shout out to my dog Kai. I haven't seen no Kai hoops this year, man. It's been tough. No Kai hoops is really harsh. It's really really tough. But you know it is what it is. Rest up. We're gonna see you. We're gonna see you all leaving. We're gonna see you next year. It is what it is. You know. Now, even though I briefly did touch upon a couple of these teams, I have 5 teams that I believe over the course of this season will make a leap, if not already established already, into title talks. I think they'll make that leap into first class to June title contender territory. So the first thing I want to touch upon is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland Cavaliers, like I said, moved off Darius Garland. I think this is an A- trade because they bring in James Harden, surprising, massive upgrade at the guard position. Darius Garland, great player, just can't stay on the floor. And you got to ask yourself, how many great Donovan Mitchell years are you going to waste? Donovan Mitchell's a guy that's in his prime right now. He's approaching his early 30s. That is a guy that you need to maximize his window right now. You know, you gave him that big deal. They have the role players right now. You know, they hit on Evan Mobley, Jared Allen. Those have been pretty much, I'd say, the poster boy for 2 big lineups. We talk about rim protection, flexibility, defending multiple positions. Evan Mobley bringing in a Defensive Player of the Year last year. So you're trying to tell yourself, the time is now. Cleveland gets off to a hot start, 3-0 with Harden in the lineup. Donovan Mitchell has been outstanding in each of those 3 games. I believe they're playing their 4th or 5th game tonight. Harden, thus far, is averaging 19.3 points, 5 rebounds, 8.7 assists on 68% true shooting. Donovan Mitchell, since Harden has arrived, is averaging 32.3 points, 6.3 assists on 64.5% true shooting. This backcourt, first off, I would go on a limb and say this might be the best backcourt in the NBA. Harden, at this stage of his career, we know he's a generational, all-time table setter, floor raiser, playmaker. His vision is off the charts. That's just where he is right now in his career as an elite floor raiser. He can still get to that scoring bag when he really needs to, but at this point of his career where you kind of want to, I don't want to say Lord manage him because he appears in every game, but you do want to, in terms of like, I guess, game load manage him, like possession load manage him. That's a guy that's burned out, you know, the past couple of years as a member of the Clippers. So when you think about it, this is kind of a match made in heaven because Mitchell is a guy, one of the, I'd say, Mitchell right now, and he's not going to get, he doesn't get that much credit, but Mitchell is very much a guy that should be in like top 5 scorers in the league combos. If you look at his numbers, like the guy has been, he's like a 50-38, like 88 guy. Not quite 50-40-90, but that next class below, he's right there. His marks are off the charts. He takes a lot of threes. He makes a good amount. Gets the free throw line. Takes contact. Like he's honestly everything you'd want in a score first guard, with the exception of height. He's a little bit on the shorter end for a 2 guard, but got a good handle. Can shoot the 3. Can get to the lane. He has the infamous D Wade Kyrie, wraparound, um, you know, move that he likes to get into. Solid playmaker, 6 assists a game. He's not going to turn the ball over too much. Has the clutch gene. Donovan Mitchell with Harden, match made in heaven. Harden is if you were to say to yourself, how many point guards in the league are better at basically maximizing bigs or putting bigs in the right place? How many pick and roll maestros are better than James Harden right now, or just ever? You know what I mean? I think James Harden, honestly, is like a top 5, top 10 all-time pick and roll maestro. Like, he is a Hall of Fame pick and roll maestro badge. Now you're giving him 2 guys that can screen for him in Mobley and Jared Allen. You got shooters everywhere. You got Sam Merrill, who lit it up for 30 a little bit before the break. You got Tyson, who's been a revelation this past year. Porter Jr. You have now Dennis Schroeder, who, like, for an emergency, if you just need a guy to handle the ball for 5 minutes, he can do that. Keon Ellis. I have a condo on the Keon Ellis Island. Like I have so much stock invested in Keon Ellis. I think he has been extremely underutilized in Sacramento. I can't blame them. When you put 8 guards in the same team, it's kind of hard to fight for playing time. But that is like the next 3-and-D guard guy to step up, like just take off. I've been huge on Keon Ellis. I think he's an amazing defensive player. I still think he even has ways to go, even as a offensive player. We still don't even know who he is exactly as offensive player. So, yeah, the Cavs. I thought it was an A- trade. I think that is a team that is really going to take a huge leap. You look at their strength of schedule. I believe it's maybe I think they're 28th in the NBA in strength of schedule. The East is really up for grabs. If I was an Eastern Conference executive or a coach or a player, the last thing I would need would be for James Harden to, find his way in Cleveland. James Harden landing in Cleveland next to Donovan Mitchell in a jam-packed backcourt, that is going to be a huge difference, especially in crunch time. Because one thing for crunch time with the Cavs, we already know who the ball is going to. Now Donovan Mitchell has someone he can lean on. Donovan Mitchell can actually sit for 2 minutes in crunch time in the fourth quarter. He wasn't able to do that. He did not have that luxury in years past because Garland wouldn't be available, and they didn't have a lot of creators that could really, make the game easier for his teammates. So I think James Harden. I think that was not just the biggest acquisition in terms of a star being moved, but I think it was the best trade. I'd say for a team that is trying to win, that's probably the biggest trade this year. The Cavs legitimately have a chance to come out of the East, especially with the strength of schedule. Mitchell not having to worry about that wear and tear that he's had to deal with down the stretch the past couple of years. Harden is going to help him the same way he's helped Kawhi. They'll probably take off. They're probably going to take off for a little bit. The Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that I have not talked a ton about this year. I do want to apologize. I have given Anthony Edwards, massive praise just for how he's approached this season. Continues to get better at, how old is he? Like 24? The Timberwolves, top 10 net team since January 1st. They bring in Ayu Dosunmu to solve, I don't want to say their point guard problem, but they've had some ball handling, some consistent point guard play issues. With Dante DiVincenzo, and this is not a slight at him, he's good in his role. That's a guy that can go defend and he can hit shots. But I do want to say that with Ayu Dosunmu there as a complementary scorer next to Dante DiVincenzo as a shooter, secondary scorer, now you've kind of solved your point guard issue. Now, when it comes to table setting and getting guys good looks, the ball is going to be in Anthony Edwards' hands anyway. So, if anything, he's not your point guard, but that's your guy that he's going to have the ball in crunch time in the playoffs. You just know that's the recipe. The recipe is giving Anthony Edwards the ball in crunch time if it comes down to it. But Dosunmu, Dante DiVincenzo, those guys stretching the floor. Now you can run Anthony Edwards with those two guards with Julius Randle and Gobert, or if you want to go Anthony Edwards, Dosunmu, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, you could do that, or you could go just super small, depending on the matchups. Like if they were to match up with, let's say, the Rockets, right? Rockets T-Wolves crunch time, they got Şengün running the 5. You think Julius Randle doesn't think he can guard Şengün? Of course he does, because you already know what Şengün. You'd think that he's going to bring Gobert out of the paint, right? If you got Şengün over there with now Randle on him, now you're going eye for eye. Now you're going Dante DiVincenzo, Ayo Dosunmu, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Randle. That's a 5 lineup that you can legitimately play. All 5 guys can shoot the 3. Not a bad defensive unit either, even with Gobert off the floor. So I did love the Ayo Dosunmu acquisition. That was another reason why I felt like, I said earlier, that may be a team that may take a leap from contender crashers to first class to June. Bones Highland, too, you got to give him some praise. Even before they picked up Ayo Dosunmu, Bones Highland was posting the 4th best net rating in January. The key to winning an NBA title is you need to have a franchise guy that can go toe-to-toe with any guy in the league, whether he's the best player in the league or not. He just brought home the All-Star Game MVP. He's already beaten, KD in a playoff series. He's beaten LeBron in a playoff series. He's beaten Steph Curry in a playoff series. Now, I know those guys are older, but this is a guy that has really slayed, real, playoff all-time guys. He's taking the steps. But now, Minnesota, you could say they've optimized their opportunity to consider themselves as a title contender. And if Anthony Edwards is this MVP finalist caliber guy, if he can go be the best player on the court, regardless who is opposite of him, you got a chance to win a ring. If you have that, and you have a team that can play defense, which the Wolves can, with McDaniels, Gobert, DiVincenzo, Ant, when he's really locked in defensively, that's the recipe for at least a finals appearance. If you want to consider yourself a team that can at least play into June. The Houston Rockets. I have done a good amount of Houston Rockets talk on Nass the Pod, but I do want to point out that I think the only thing holding that team back, and everyone's going to say point guard play, I get that. I think they need to almost re-scheme their crunch time offense in the half court. It's a lot of KD, it's a lot of Şengün, it's a lot of Amen Thompson sitting in the corner. I actually, early today in the morning, I watched that last Rockets-Clippers game before the All-Star break. I was watching the Rockets in crunch time, and there were some plays where, first off, the Rockets, in crunch time, their offense almost never looks settled. Like everyone, it's almost like people don't know what to do in clutch time. If KD's not in isolation, or Şengün isn't in isolation, or those two guys aren't running a two-man game and letting other players kind of play off of that, whether it's cuts, backdoors, pin downs, the Rockets typically look lost in the half court in crunch time. It's not the first time I've observed this. And my biggest thing is I feel like they put Amen in the corner a little bit too much, to the point where you're almost helping the defense. Defenses are already scouting, go under on the pick and roll screens for Amen, go under, force him to rise up for a jump shot, and don't close out when he's in the corner. Just leave him out there. Let him shoot. Make him beat you. That's the formula that teams are now coming up with, and definitely know that after a couple weeks of film, they're going to double down on that in the playoffs if they were to match up with the Rockets. My slight solution would be, and I'm going to shout out Tim Legler. Tim Legler pointed this out about a month ago. He said that Amen Thompson, they don't flirt with Amen Thompson in the post. Ball in the hand, in the mid post. Amen Thompson's bigger than 90% of point guards at a position. Maybe like 95. He's like 6'6", 6'7". We've all talked about how big the Rockets are. It's time for them to utilize that on offense, not just on the glass, not just defensively. Be big on offense. If you have KD in the mid post, if you have Amen in the mid post, put the ball in Amen's hands. He can see over his defender. He's got good catch and shoot opportunities with KD, Jabari Smith Jr., who's taking a leap as a three-point shooter. Şengün is a force in the paint. He's a elite finisher at the rim. Amen can definitely get down to the paint. He shoots 5 free throws a game. If they can put the ball in his hands a little bit more often in crunch time, I think they can do some things offensively. They could iron out some of their, all that stagnant half court stuff that seems to be a repeated theme. Run some more post ups for Amen Thompson, get him in space. They should definitely run some more Amen Thompson, KD inverted pick and rolls. If Amen has the ball in his hands and you're saying go under, KD's going to slip out. And you're not just going to let him slip out of that screen alone. You're going to throw a guy on there. Sometimes you're going to overreact if the communication isn't really on point. You might have 2 guys sprint to KD as he's flaring to the 3-point line. And before you know it, Amen Thompson is in a 4-on-3 situation. It's all about creating disadvantages and mismatches. We know Amen Thompson's not a great shooter. Well, you need to minimize those situations that teams are going to put him in. Teams are going to go under on those screens. They're going to force him to be a jump shooter. But I don't think you can run the same pick and rolls with Şengün with Amen handling the ball as you can with KD. You have Amen having the ball, You can do all sorts of things. His handle is maybe not as tight, but it's getting there. It's still like he's a point guard. He's a guard wing. I don't even exactly know what he is. I don't even know what a point guard is anymore. But point blank, he's the point guard for the Houston Rockets. Reed Shepard, even him, I didn't even mention him. He's taking a leap this year. Reed Shepard is a catch and shoot opportunist off of Amen Thompson drives. Come on, like those are high quality looks. When you want to get Amen Thompson, who's one of the best athletes in the world, you want to optimize his opportunities at the rim. You need to make him a scorer. The only way the Houston Rockets are going to really put fear into their opponents and really be revered as a title threat if they put the ball in Amen's hands and ask him to go be a scorer or go be a paint toucher first. That's one pivot that I think the Houston Rockets should look at. But overall, they're still a top 10 defense. They've regressed on offense. I think they're the 24th offense in the NBA since January 1st. Amen's only taken 13 shots a game through February 18th. Right now, the Rockets are 28th in three-point percentage since January 1st. They lost Steven Adams to an end-of-season left ankle surgery. That was kind of their superpower on offense, basically dominating the glass. Even though without Adams, I don't want to say their rebounding metrics have regressed. They're kind of been basically on par. They're still first in the NBA in total rebounds since the new year started. So rebounding, it's mainly the offensive glass. But now, like those offensive rebounds, they become a lot more glaring because you don't have a guy like Adams to clean it up. Now you're not getting those second chance points. Your margin of error is not the same. It's just not the same without Steven Adams on the floor. So I think one way to at least optimize their half court offense is if they put the ball not just in Amen's hands, but get him some post ups over some smaller guys. He still gets the free throw line 5 times a game. Not bad for a guy that is kind of revered as the third wheel in terms of touches. But when he has the ball in his hands, you want to put him in the right spots. If they want to go under on the screen, go ahead, go under. But make sure he's running those screens with KD. They're not going to trap Amen on a KD screen. That's just not happening. And vice versa. If KD has the ball, KD's going to get blitzed. We know that. Amen Thompson is generating 0.91 points per possession as the pick and roll ball handler. KD, not too far off. He's averaging 0.99 points per possession as the pick and roll ball handler. Both of them don't operate as the pick and roll ball handler no more than 24% of the time they have the ball. So even though it's a low frequency, I believe that KD and Amen inverted pick and rolls plus putting the ball in Amen's hands, some more mid post ups against smaller guys, hunting mismatches, creating disadvantages for the opposition. I think that's the next thing that the Rockets staff has to conquer regarding their half court offense, because the Şengün, the KD, their two-man game is great, but it becomes a little bit too predictable, especially when at times Amen is not even regarded as a shooter. Depending on personnel, you might not even have Reed Shepard out there, so maybe it's someone like Josh Okogie. You got Jabari Smith Jr., who has taken a leap as a three-point shooter, but you don't know if he's ready for those volume takes off those blitzes. I believe if they are able to, kind of turn Amen into a hybrid scorer playmaker, I think that will make them maybe not favorites in the West, but that'll definitely put them in the room. The next post All-Star break contender loomer, I have the Denver Nuggets, who are 3-4 since Nikola Jokic returned. They've dealt with injuries pretty much all season. Jokic, Aaron Gordon, Christian Braun, Peyton Watson now. But while Jokic was out, Jamal Murray and Peyton Watson, they deserve a lot of credit for holding the Nuggets afloat. Jamal Murray is having, I'd say, the best year of his life. 27.8 points, 4 rebounds, 8.5 assists, just 2 turnovers, 62.6 true shooting. And he actually has, prior to the All-Star break, he had a higher estimated wins added metric than Kawhi, Harden, and Steph. So that's how impactful Jamal Murray has been on that team. And that's been a guy who's gone slighted for, not slighted, he hasn't gotten all the credit that's probably due for a guy that went lottery. Kentucky one and done. But because he plays next to Jokic, he's kind of been categorized as a guy that majority just, eats off of just what Jokic generates. And that's just not true. Like Jamal Murray is an all-star caliber player. He's going to make an all NBA team this year if he keeps up at this pace. So we should definitely put a little bit more respect on Jamal Murray. I wasn't even sure if he could play at this level. I knew he could obviously shoot and he could score. Like, that's a guy that has put up big numbers in the playoffs, especially against like the Lakers, champion obviously. But we didn't know if he was able to do this. And I hate using the Batman Robin, analogy, but we didn't know if he was able with the right pieces around him to lead a team, lead a playoff caliber team. Now, the Nuggets came to Boston, I want to say maybe like 3 weeks ago. They handed it to us. They gave the Celtics work. I think Murray dished out like 17 assists that game, had one turnover. And that wasn't even a good shooting night for him. But for him to be able to uplift the team in that way with his playmaking and vision, on a night where his shot wasn't falling, which is his biggest strength, is shooting, I thought that was really telling. But like I said, he's going to make an All-NBA team. Payne Watson, 22 points, 6 rebounds, tick under 3 assists, a tick under 3 stocks, 48 from the field, 43% from 3 on 5 takes, and 73 from the line. That's another guy that an understated leap in, the 2025-2026 season. It feels like every couple weeks we just see a guy just kind of put up numbers for 2-3 weeks. Payne Watson, huge stretch he's had, and that's going to be vital for their playoff run because he's not going to get that same volume of shots and opportunities once Gordon is back and running and Christian Braun. But the fact that he can defend, be a respectable catch and shoot guy, score, in lineups where Jokic might need a breather or Murray, I think that's going to bode well for the Nuggets. This is a team that is 24th in defensive rating. I want to point that more so to availability because this is the same pretty much constructed unit as last year, with the difference of what Bruce Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr., Cam Johnson, you had Westbrook last year. Maybe a difference in a couple wins, couple losses, but for them to maintain high Western Conference seeding, I think that's going to be really important for them, especially because this is the one year that you could say they had the injury bug. If they wanted to use that excuse, I would buy it because a lot of their core high minute guys, they've been hurt. If Denver can get all their guys healthy, that they'll be right there at the end. They'll be in the title contention room. The last team, the fifth and last team that I think has an opportunity to go on a special run into the playoffs and an opportunity to climb the ranks into the ready for June title tier, the Boston Celtics. You're getting an MVP finalist caliber year from Jaylen Brown, probably a first-team All-NBA level guy. Hugo Gonzalez and Derek White are a plus 30.9 net rating just from all two-man lineups. That's a big deal because a month ago, I don't think Hugo Gonzalez would play 20 minutes in a playoff game. Now, I think he will. And if Tatum comes back, I think that's going to make his life even easier. And now I can actually picture a lineup where we run Peyton, Derek, Tatum Brown, Hugo Gonzalez, like a small ball. I can see it. It makes sense. You got switching. You got guys that can defend, guys that can shoot, guys that can get to the rim. Now, I don't want to, over accelerate like the Celtics' chances in the East this year because a lot of it is really predicated on whether Tatum, I don't want to say is going to return to MVP form because that's unprecedented. Like, he's not going to be at first team All NBA Tatum form that we've become accustomed to the past, 5-6 years. But he's one of the most lineup proof, bulletproof superstars we've seen over the past, I'd say even 20 years. This is a guy that impacts every single facet of the game, whether it's shooting, scoring, getting to the rim, knocking down free throws, rebounding, defending. He can switch on to four or five different types of players. Like, that's the type of versatility that, Jason Tatum possesses. So I think that and being additive and just plugging him into, the system that he already knows so well, I think, I'm not going to say we're just going to jump into title contention, but with the East being wide open the way it is, like I said earlier, I think it definitely gives the Celtics a chance to at least be an East Finals team lock. I do think that right now, as currently constructed, the Celtics, we're just one more plug-in, impactful guy on both sides of the floor away from you know, being considered that type of title juggernaut in the East. But Tatum, with what he can do in all those facets, like I listed, knowing the system, I'm not going to say it's going to be a seamless transition because this is the first time he's torn his Achilles, and he hasn't really had a major injury since he's been in the NBA. It's definitely going to be a little challenging. Not to mention, he hasn't played with this version of Jaylen Brown. This is a Jaylen Brown. This is a Jaylen Brown led team. Tatum has never been in that position since he was handed the keys. Like, it's gonna take some adjusting to not having the ball in your hands all the time. I mean, this is a guy that's probably been the best player on his basketball team probably his whole life. And that's a wrap on another episode of Nass the Pod Season 5. As you know, your favorite NBA host, Nass, here always. Socials at the bottom. Like, comment, subscribe, follow. Tell your mans, tell your bro, tell your sis, your parents, your grandmama, your barber, your girl, your coach. Tell somebody. Damn. Nah, in all seriousness, I do appreciate all the love. I'm gonna see y'all next time. Peace.